Welcome to the Celebrate a Sister podcast. I'm your host, Emma Walkinshaw, author, body confidence coach, and founder of The Embodied Woman and 21 Minutes of Morning Magic. You'll also find me on the yoga mat hosting retreats here in Australia and internationally. Each week, I chat with incredible women around self-belief, body acceptance, and embracing who we are, especially in midlife. We share real stories, challenge outdated beauty standards, and grow together through honest conversations. I am so glad you are here. Enjoy. Get ready for an incredible conversation. As I welcome Sarah, she is a non-diet dietitian. She gave me so many aha moments in this incredible conversation. She promotes healthy at all sizes, and she really is about building a better relationship with yourself. And she explains about intuitive eating and how that can help us in our life and tapping into what we need and what we want. This conversation is part of the Body Love Revolution online summit, and I'm starting to roll these conversations out because they're just too good to keep tucked away. Enjoy today's conversation with Sarah. I know that you'll have some incredible takeaways. Enjoy. Hello, everybody, and a big warm welcome to our Body Love Revolution online summit. Today, I have the pleasure, little tongue twist there, have the pleasure of being joined by Sarah Stafford. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Sarah. Sarah is on a mission to empower her clients to break free from dieting and transform their relationship with food and their bodies through intuitive eating. As a highly experienced, accredited practicing dietitian and passionate advocate of non-diet intuitive eating approach, Sarah firmly believes in promoting health at every size. And she uses the HAES, the HAES principles, and rejecting restrictive diets in favor of a holistic approach to health. Throughout her 13 plus years in a private practice, Sarah realized that the traditional weight-centric approach to health and nutrition was not serving anyone and yearned for an alternative, more effective model. Intuitive eating was the missing piece, and since training as an intuitive eating counsellor, hasn't looked back. Her personal journey of overcoming disordered eating adds to a unique perspective and empathy with the clients she works with, fueling her dedication and passion to create a lasting impact on diet culture for future generations. Beyond Sarah's professional endeavors, Sarah is a devoted, yes, you're about to hear this, I'm not going to say it twice, mother of 5, providing her with firsthand understanding of the challenges and responsibilities of balancing family life, marriage, and entrepreneurship. When she's not spending time with her children or working in her business, you can find Sarah immersed in nature, enjoying walks in the bush or by the sea. Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you so much for having me, Emma. I'm so happy to be here.
Oh, I'm delighted you said yes. We recorded a podcast together late last year, and our podcast, chatting with you opened my eyes up in so many ways, and I really enjoy your take and your knowledge being a dietitian, working with clients, having this intuitive eating bow to your feather to your bow is tremendous. And also your personal journey, your own journey. And like we said offline, managing 5 children, a family, a marriage, and a business, that makes for a very stimulating life, no doubt. So, yeah, so you are a busy woman, or I try not to say busy, a stimulated woman. That's what I try to say. highly stimulated. So today, the Body Love Revolution, today our chat, I have some great questions that I'm going to ask you because I absolutely love your take and your experience. So I want to ask you, what do you believe is the problem with diets? And why would we want to stop dieting if we're overweight? Because we hear this messaging, shouldn't we be watching our weight, and shouldn't we be eating right, and shouldn't we be improving our health? That's the messaging that we hear. So can you tell me, what is the problem with diets?
Oh, great question. Thank you. Good place to start. So I think it's important to begin by understanding that we have this belief and this assumption that our society and culture and a lot of the medical and health professions operate on is this assumption that a lower body weight is healthier. And that, if we need to improve our health, then we should be trying to lose weight. So it's a commonly held belief, and it's one that hasn't really been challenged up until recent years with, some new science and evidence that's coming through. I would bargain that most health providers will still tell you that weight and health sort of go hand in hand. But yeah, like I said, the science is telling us that it's going in a different direction, which is lovely. Because from my experience, I've noticed, all the clients that I've seen, thousands of people have not been able to make the weight loss stick, or the small improvements to their health just hasn't stuck around. It hasn't persisted. They might have gone down into some disordered eating behaviours, or they might be sort of stuck in this cycle of, diet after diet after diet. And it's just not the answer that we're looking for. And I think, there's also an idea that, this higher weight is causing disease or illness. You only have to think about, the obesity epidemic that has been reported in the media for quite a number of years now. So it does sort of stand to reason that, if you want to improve your health, then you need to be seen to be trying to lose weight. And it does appear to do that in the short term. So you will see, a short-term improvement in some of your health markers, but that isn't as a result of losing weight. It's a short-term suppression of certain types of markers in our blood, and it's usually as a result of a energy deficit that comes from not eating enough. So it's temporary, but you will notice, slightly lower inflammation markers, cholesterol, blood sugar, blood pressure. But that is usually as a result of not eating enough and just not, giving yourself enough energy. So your body suppresses those things, but it's very short term and it doesn't persist beyond that time of energy deficit. Yeah.
When you're talking through that, I absolutely know what that feels like.
Mm-hmm.
That is, yeah. So it's almost like on one hand, you're swapping something out, but then you don't have the energy and you're obsessed and I'm speaking for myself. So it just shifts. It just shifts your perception. But again, back to that sustainability piece, it's not. And like you said, I've heard a lot of people go to the doctor and it can be an array of things and they will just be prescribed lose weight.
Absolutely. And especially if you're in a slightly larger body or a larger body, that will be the first thing they suggest. Or one of the things that they suggest is, okay, well, let's start with losing some weight, believing that is the answer to the problem. And it's really not the whole answer to the problem. It can compound the problem.
Yeah. So you can be in a larger body and still be healthy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's not just based on my experience as a clinician, but it's backed up in the science as well. So there was a really great study. It was reported in 2012, and it's based on a massive data set. So some people might be aware of the NHANES study. So this data was pulled from that, and it looks at 133 million subjects, which included 18 million deaths, and it was over 170 months. So it's a really long-term study, really large study. And what they were able to tell us was that it didn't really matter so much what your body size was. It was the health behaviours that you engaged in. So the more health behaviours you engaged in, the less likely your weight would have an impact on your mortality or your risk of dying. So when we it'd be great if I could show you a graph, but I can't. I'll just try and explain it to you.
Yes.
So if you are eating 5 or more serves of fruit and veg a day, if you're not smoking, if you're physically active, and if you're drinking alcohol within the guidelines, so that's between 1 and 2 standard drinks per day, depending if you're male or female. So if you're doing all of those things, then your risk of dying is almost equal no matter what your body size.
Wow.
Yeah. So, we have this really strong belief that weight is a big part of the puzzle, but it just isn't backed up in the science. It's just not there.
That is wonderful to hear. So anyone who is in a larger body, if they are eating their fruit and veg, active, and I can think of many people who, and when we even say, and you brought this to my attention last time we chatted, which I absolutely loved, my idea, and I believe that I could potentially be speaking for many here, my idea of a larger body isn't even a larger body. And I loved how you educated me last time, Sarah. So I said to you, it was something like, larger body, size 14 to 16. And you very kindly pulled me up and said, well, actually, that's not a larger body. So even our perception around what is a larger body, and like you say, it would be great to have like a visual or a graph to show us even what a larger body is, but engaging in those beautiful behaviors, fruit and veg, not excessive alcohol and movement. The other thing, I know that they potentially haven't done this, but we know from my own experience, wellness also comes in other ways, shapes and forms. And obviously, we know that relationships, really great connection in our life keeps us really well. You're having harmony with your significant other or having a support network, all of that as well, I'm assuming would contribute to a beautiful long life, even if you are in a larger body.
Absolutely. I think they say that community and that sense of belonging in community has a really large impact on mental health and longevity. The people who live the longest are the ones that are very involved and connected to community.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking right now of my grandmother, and she was always in a larger body and lived till she was 94, ate well, didn't drink though, but whatever, walked a lot because she didn't drive, but she was the heart and the soul of our family. We all just adored her. And I think of her and, being in a larger body really was pretty insignificant at the end of the day.
Yeah, for sure. And, we can be in a larger body and still live a really fulfilled, active, energized existence. People in larger bodies aren't these lazy, people that just sit around just, eating. There's this just such an awful stigma attached to larger bodies. And I think conversely, it's the same with smaller bodies too. There's this misperception that smaller body people are super active and they move a lot. But, you can be healthy or unhealthy, depending on what your definition of healthy is, but we can be healthy or unhealthy in any size body.
Yes.
And that's backed up in the data too. People who are in, that perfectly healthy, BMI category or lower, can have a higher risk of mortality depending on how well they look after themselves. So, yeah, it's not cut and dry, and it's not, it's not our body weight that determines our health at the end of the day. It's so much broader than that. And that's what I love about intuitive eating, is that we just cut the weight out of the equation. We don't focus on that. We focus on all those other things that we do know does have an impact on our health.
Can you explain to everybody what intuitive eating is and why it's a better path for our health?
Yeah, for sure. So intuitive eating it's my preferred approach to eating. This is based on my experience And you did mention in my bio my history of disordered eating. And being a dietitian, I'm exposed to so many, diets and ways of eating. And like I said, it was like a massive light bulb moment that, happened when I came across intuitive eating. So this is something that I really, really strongly believe in. I think it's what we were born to do, really. If we look at the way that babies and infants or, toddlers eat, they eat intuitively. They listen to their bodies. They stop when they're full. They know what they want. They know what they feel like. And, all hell breaks loose if they don't get it. But, they don't follow a diet plan. They don't follow nutrition guidelines. They just listen to their bodies. And I think most of us will know someone who has never dieted. And it's probably a man. Don't want to be sexist, but, a lot of us women have been encouraged to watch our weight and try and lose weight. So, we've all met someone who has never dieted, doesn't worry about their weight, and eats intuitively. So to give it a bit of a definition for people who've never heard of it, it's about tapping into your body, listening to the very subtle signals and cues that our body sends us to help us to choose and decide what to eat. So rather than following a diet, following like an external diet plan or following guidelines or counting macros or calories or anything like that, we make decisions based on our body, how our body feels, and what signals we're getting from our body in that moment in time. So it might be that, we're feeling genuine hunger, and it could be quite strong hunger, and, you notice that it's approaching lunchtime. So then you might decide, okay, now's the time to have, a decent sized meal because I know that I'm feeling quite hungry. So that's part of eating intuitively, is noticing those signals and then honoring them, asking your body what feels good right now or what would feel good to eat right now, and then listening to what comes up, or noticing what food, when you run it through in your mind, what food is really appealing and what do you think is going to be really satisfying and what do you think is going to support you and your body to achieve what you need to in the next few hours until your next meal. Mm-hmm. So even though I might be, quite hungry right now, I know that, I've got, certain errands to run, or I want to go and enjoy a strenuous walk on a beautiful day. A salad might not be enough to keep me going. I'm going to need something a little bit more substantial. So, yeah, it is a bit hard to define, but simply put, it's tapping inwards, listening to those signals, and then honouring them.
Yeah, I like that. I like it a lot. And I've been just recently asking myself, because I find different textures of food or warm and cool are sometimes of preference, particularly where I'm on the Gold Coast, it's really hot. So it is that time where you want more of those cooling foods as opposed to warm foods, but checking in with that. What is that I feel like? And the crunch, do I want some crunch or do I want, it's those little things, which has been lovely. My awareness is raising about that, tapping into what do I feel like? What's the texture? What's the temperature? What's, all of those lovely little questions.
And do you find when you eat that way that you feel more satisfied at the end of the meal or when you finish eating?
Yeah. And it's prepared with a lot more love and care. It's been thought through as opposed to grab and run. It's been thought through and just a little bit more, the word is love, more love is being put into that.
And I think when you feel that love for that food, I think we appreciate it more, we enjoy it more, but we feel really satisfied. And I think that satisfaction is a really big piece of the puzzle, because when we don't feel satisfied, we're still looking for something else. So, we might be snacking between meals, or we might be feeling physically full, but we're still putting more food on our plate because it hasn't quite met that need for texture or temperature or even flavor. And that's one of the problems with dieting too, is because if you're following a meal plan and it tells you, okay, you need to eat this now and you need to eat that then, you might not feel like that and you're not going to feel satisfied. So you're missing out on that, feeling just done and happy and satisfied, sated, relaxed, peaceful. Yeah.
Even the feeling that when I'm thinking of that, it's the word nourished, like it's satisfied, nourished, like I feel like I've totally nourished. I've hit all those markers of the taste, the texture, and I'm not looking for something. Yeah, because it feels like I've hit the spot. I've hit the sweet spot. Yeah.
Absolutely. You asked in that previous question, why is it a better path to health? So I just wanted to speak on that, touch on that for a little bit. So there's a number of reasons why I think it's the better path. We've brushed over a little bit about dieting, but dieting is just fraught with difficulties and problems. We know it doesn't work. So, I think most people know it doesn't work. So, now we do a lifestyle change or we eat clean or whatever. But, they are still diets, still, just dressed up as something else. But intuitive eating, when we are eating intuitively, it just actually feels really good to live in connection and synergy with our bodies, and to know, like on that really deep level, that you're nourishing and you're giving it what it needs and what it's asking for. You're not fighting against it. You're not trying to change it or control it. You're not, you're not working against it. So it feels smoother and calmer and a lot more peaceful. But also, because when we eat intuitively, we really focus on looking inwards. We become really good at doing that, but that has other sort of knock-on effects, and we become a lot more connected to our bodies in other ways too. So you'll notice feeling more connected to your emotions and your ability to perceive, what's actually really going on and how those emotions are affecting other areas of your life. Even, managing or detecting and managing pain, and just general self-care and just, noticing, okay, what do I actually need right now? Is it a really vigorous walk or gym session? Or is some yoga or stretching or Pilates something, more, going to meet my needs right now? So there's that. Another reason is that when we're not dieting, we've just got more mental space and more capacity for other things in our life. I know when I was really caught up in the disordered eating phase, it consumed all my thoughts 24/7, thinking about my weight, thinking about my calories, like always having this clock ticking, or this calculator sort of adding things up in my head all the time. And it becomes your focal point in life, and everything else just isn't as important as that. So when I stopped dieting, I really noticed that, just more mental space and capacity to do other things and not to worry about that. Overall just feeling like a sense of calm and a sense of peace around food, and not stressing about celebrations or family meals or social events where I'd have to watch what I was eating or feel like I was being judged for, eating certain things or drinking certain things. There's all of that. And then, there's a ton of evidence as well. So there's a lot of studies that have been done now into intuitive eating and really support it as a really great approach to eating. And we've seen improvements in cholesterol, so especially our good type of cholesterol, and we see a reduction in the bad type of cholesterol, blood pressure, dietary variety. So we know that the more types of foods we eat, the healthier we are. We see a lot less disordered eating, emotional eating, and binging, because a lot of that is driven by restriction and dieting. We see better mental health, better body image, self-esteem, sense of well-being and optimism, and just sort of general satisfaction in life. And yeah, that's all backed up by the science, which is just so wonderful.
Oh, yes, all of those things. I can totally identify with that, as opposed to being in this intuitive place and trusting myself, as opposed to the prescribed eating approach, which you just feel like you're never getting it right. And then the obsession about things like weighing and measuring and being on the plan and saying, I need to be eating a mango and we're in July. And then the stress of, all of that bizarreness when, if we think of the whole intuitive piece, in summertime, yes, it's wonderful to have stone fruit and watermelon. In winter, we don't need that. It's coming back to that as well.
Yeah.
And enjoying the life and this beautiful life we have, as opposed to this constant, that mental load. And when you were talking, I was thinking about how everyone says I start the diet on Monday. We always put it off because it takes such energy and planning to do the goddamn diet, because you've got to stick to this prescription, right? So you need the weekend to get prepared, to hunker down and whip your butt into shape to be able to stick to it. You can't just decide, whereas intuitive eating, I can choose one beautiful bite at a time, not planning my whole week and then getting to, the day and going, well, I don't feel like that. Well, bad luck, buttercup. You're on diet.
Yeah. And you're so right. And it also sort of highlights the fact that it's a chore. It's not something you're going to start on Saturday because, you want to enjoy your weekend and you want to enjoy your food. But yeah, when we eat intuitively, every meal and every food, well, look, I mean, that's a bit of an exaggeration. There are some times when we do just eat because, we kind of have to and whatever. But 90% of the time, the food we choose to eat is really, really enjoyable. And it's joyful and it's relaxed and it's not a chore and it's not a hardship at all.
Yeah. And there's an abundance in that, as opposed to a scarcity. When you're having to weigh out and measure and this and that, then there's just so much scarcity. And, from my own perspective, it really is that feast or famine mindset. We're either famining or we're feasting. There's nothing in between. Whereas it sounds to me like intuitive eating is that sweet spot, again, that beautiful spot. I'm not in feast and I'm not in famine. It's okay. Trust yourself. If you want to eat that, eat that. But that's the other thing that I do get a little bit with intuitive eating, and I do want to ask, does it just mean it's free for all, eat what you want?
Yes. And I love this question. I love it because I feel the fear.
Yeah.
And I have felt that fear. So, I mean, I was trained as a dietitian. I've been trained in restriction and ticking boxes and making sure, the calorie intake is right and you're getting X number of veg and fruit and protein. I come from a place of control. And when I heard you can eat whatever your body wants, whenever it wants, alarm bells were ringing. I just thought, what is this? I'm just going to eat anything and everything. There'll be no structure. I'll just eat chocolate all the time and I'll just binge and, whatever. How can that be a healthy approach? So I feel this to my core because I have been through it. And I will say, okay, so in the beginning, when you are learning to eat intuitively, it can be a little bit messy because you're learning something new. It is a bit of a new skill. I mean, we have these skills innately, think about, the infant or the baby, the child or the person who's never dieted. We do have these skills, but a lot of them go offline because they've been overridden through dieting. So when we're dieting, we are often ignoring those hunger and fullness signals, and the body eventually gives up. So it's a bit like knocking on the door, no one's answering. Knocking on the door, no one's answering. No one bothers knocking on the door anymore because no one's answering. So it can be very messy in the beginning to get it right. But once you get through that, once you learn to trust your body, and you do that only through experience of getting it right and getting it wrong sometimes. But once you have rebuilt that trust in your body and learned what those signals are for you, then, I've got to say my diet is even better than before I was intuitive eating. Yeah, before I was eating intuitively. But what it means now is that, I feel full freedom in my food choices. So if, lunchtime approached and nothing was feeling appealing in the, the freezer or the fridge, I just, didn't want anything but a bowl of muesli for lunch, then I'd have a bowl of muesli or a bowl of ice cream, whatever. So it does mean abandoning those rules that we've lived by. But when we are actually really in tune with our body is not going to ask for chocolate and ice cream and chips and burgers and whatever all the time, because our body doesn't want that. Our body does want to be nourished and fueled and to feel satisfied and sated. It doesn't want those, the rides of sugar highs and lows and all that kind of thing, even though they are enjoyable foods. When you actually really tap in, it's not what your body's asking for.
Yeah.
So I'm really glad you asked that question because, it's a bit of a sticking point for people. They might start this journey and sort of, feel a bit out of control or feel quite fearful about taking that leap. And you can do it as quickly or as slowly as you need. But once you start to build those skills, build trust, and then it just kind of snowballs from there, and you'll find, a few months down the track, then you're doing things a little bit more comfortably without having to think about it too much.
Sarah, very empowering because it is taking your power back. I think of my own journey. I have outsourced my eating too many times. It's the bought in meals, the Jenny Craig, the light and easy, the I can go on and on, and you've heard it all, from your clients. And this is the bit where the intuitive eating bit, it is a practice. I believe it's a practice, and I love when you said, it can take as long or as short, you can integrate this and it's a process. And from my own experience, no, I'm not going to get it right all the time, this practice. But it really is empowering when you do start to have those feelings of satisfaction and nourishment after a meal. That's the little key. If I think about myself, I'm on the right path as opposed to this outsourcing so many things in my life. And there's some things you can outsource, and this is not one of them.
Love that. Yes.
Yeah.
I really love that. Can I use that?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Go for it.
You're so right. We outsource so much, and that is just part of being a woman or a person in this time, in this life. Right now we do need to do that to survive. But yeah, no one can know you and no one can know your body better than you do. I love that. Just it really captures it beautifully.
I love this. So I do want to ask what to do if I genuinely dislike my body and want my body to be smaller. Because I would imagine, and this is absolutely, I grapple with this, wanting to be intuitive eater, wanting to be comfortable in my own skin, but being pulled, but every now and again seeing a photo of myself and going, oh. So what do we do if we actually want to be in a smaller body?
Yeah. So I again, this is something very personal to me, and this is something that I fluctuate with as well. So I will say the longer that I've been on this journey, the further apart those fluctuations have become. At the beginning, it was very up and down. One day I would be like, yes, this is feeling really good, and I'm feeling really in touch, and I'm confident, and feeling great. And then the next day, I might hear someone make a comment or talk about starting a diet, or you just hear things or see things, and then it's like a knee-jerk reaction. You think, okay, you know what, enough's enough. I'm not loving my body. I need to start a diet. So again, it's something that does just take a bit of time. And even though intuitive eating doesn't focus on weight loss, it's not a goal of weight loss. Of intuitive eating is not weight loss. We don't intend to do it to lose weight at all. In fact, it's important to understand that trying to lose weight interferes with the process of intuitive eating itself. Because, again, it's that external influence, the outsourcing of that. So that's something that's important to understand, is that, the moment we make choices based on weight reduction, then that's interfering with the process. Having said that, though, with a lot of love and kindness, I'm going to say that it's okay to still hold that desire and that want to live in a smaller body, because we live in a world that highly values smaller bodies, highly values the pursuit of health and weight reduction. Things are slowly changing, but we've grown up with it being the norm, and it's really hard to undo that. So hold yourself with a lot of kindness and compassion, and be okay with that. But at the same time, you don't have to act on it.
Mm.
So you can hold that desire for as long as you need to until you're ready to let it go. But you don't have to act on that desire.
Mm.
And that's something that helped me just to sort of catch myself as I was getting that knee-jerk reaction, oh, I need to lose weight. I was like, oh, wait, hang on. I don't need to act on this. I don't need to start the diet. I can feel that. I can feel that desire, but I know that it's not good. I know it's not going to make me feel any better about myself in the long term. So I'm choosing not to act on it. So that's a really helpful mindset sort of strategy just to get you through that phase. And another thing that I found really helpful too was trying to think about my body with love and some respect. So, we are very, what's the word? We think about our bodies aesthetically. It's all about looks, not so much about the function. I think it depends on your experience there. I mean, with your background in yoga, you're maybe not, but bring your awareness back to what your body is able to do, what it has done, what it's capable of, what it allows you to do, and bring some respect and kindness to your body. And I started doing this in the shower, and coming out of the shower, looking in the mirror, and instead of picking apart the bits I didn't like and focusing on, the mum tum and the lumps and the bumps and the wobbles and all that kind of stuff, I was quite firm with myself, and I would change that inner narrative to, thank you for stretching and allowing my children to grow. You know, thank you for these strong legs that have allowed me to run ultra marathons and walk a pilgrimage in Spain. Thank you for these strong arms that I can carry my children with. You know, changing that inner narrative really changed the way that I viewed my body. Nothing has changed about my body. Looks the same, but the feeling that I have towards my body has changed because of that language that I'm using with myself.
Yeah, that is, like you say, that loving, it's that loving kindness, loving compassion practice. And I just recently turned 48, and my little loving compassion practice is what a privilege it is to turn 48. Many haven't. So how wonderful that I now get to be in a 48-year-old body.
That actually gives me goosebumps. Yeah, I love that. I love that.
It's that, isn't it? And that's the practice, because it's really easy to, and like you say, every now and again we're going to have a slip up. And I love that, because I have been, particularly this time of year, there is such a pull, a lot of conversation. You know, I was chatting to, you know, quite a few people in the last few weeks that, I'm on the shred and I'm this. And then it's like almost like that, for me, it's like that inner war wants to start, where, you know, it's like good cop, bad cop, one going, no, we're intuitive here and we've got this, and the other one going, oh, this is ridiculous. Just, you know, it can almost ignite that inner war again. But I know that inner war, absolutely what your beautiful business is called, Peaceful Eating Project. This is not peaceful eating. We're at war again.
Yes.
It's like, you know, it's not the way it takes a lot of, like you said earlier, just so much, consumes so much. There is nothing peaceful about it. It's a war. It's not peace.
Absolutely. And I firmly believe that we're not designed to live that way. We're not designed to live at war with our bodies.
No.
And we're not designed to scrutinize every morsel that we eat. No. You know, there's so much more to life than all of that, right?
Oh.
So, you know, when you bring it back to, you know, the core of who we are and what food actually does mean, as far as our body's concerned, it's just purely survival.
Yeah.
You know, and dieting just triggers off all of those survival mechanisms. We can't win the war against our body. We actually can't. Not for very long. We might be able to short term, and you will meet people who have managed to lose some weight and keep it off, but that's a very small minority. And I'm willing to bet that those people will have to maintain an additional level of control to maintain that loss. But for the vast majority of the population, it's just not possible, because our body is so geared to survival, and it makes these very subtle changes to our biochemistry that promotes weight regain, high fat percentage, like all sorts of very subtle mechanisms to hold on to our weight for survival, which, you know, we could be very thankful for if we needed it.
True. But it's highly unlikely. So we need to really give ourselves some love and kindness and reduce that war. You know, don't go the peaceful route. Yes, so I want to ask, Sarah, what would be the first steps you could take if you want to stop dieting? Just what would be just a first step that you could take?
Yeah. It's going to need a little bit of bravery to say no and to catch those moments. So an awareness of those moments would be a really lovely first start. And practicing tuning in. So yeah, that would be the absolute first step, is just start by tuning in more into your hunger, into fullness, into what would feel good in my body right now? You know, what is my body asking for? And yeah, just taking note of how certain foods make you feel. You know what I discovered?
Tell me.
I'm going to admit this publicly, but it makes me feel a little bit un-Australian, but I don't actually like Tim Tams.
That's not such a bad.
I was so shocked because they're chocolate, you know, they were advertised and they were desirable and they were, you know, in the chocolate biscuit aisle in the supermarket. And, you know, they are a food that we have sort of put on a pedestal, right? So, I mean, this is a few months ago now, but I bought some Tim Tams. I thought, yeah, they look good. Bought some Tim Tams. And I was eating one and I was just checking in. I'm like, how does this taste? Not that great. I didn't actually like the taste of it. And I finished it, but I didn't actually really enjoy it. And I thought, you know what? I'm probably not going to do that again. Not with a lot of enjoyment or joy. You know, if I've got a choice, then I'll go for something that I would really enjoy. And the same thing with Toblerone recently. I was given a really big, you know, those really big blocks of Toblerone around Christmas time, and I just don't like the chocolate. So, yeah, it's interesting what we think we want or desire might not actually be what is really enjoyable. And often, yeah, you know, we've been influenced by media, by marketing, by even just the idea of something being a little bit forbidden or a little bit special, or, you know, it makes it more attractive. Yeah. So, yeah, it becomes something that's a bit more special, but in reality, it may not be that great.
And your Tim Tams, it's very patriarchal to like a Tim Tam and be Australian, isn't it? So you went against the grain and said, well, actually, I'm going to say no. That's like saying I don't like pavlovas or Vegemite.
Love pavlovas and Vegemite, so I think I'm okay. I hope I'm okay.
Yeah, and that's the power of awareness in this intuitive eating practice.
Yeah,
is that, and you know, and it's quite funny in a way, isn't it, to think, what, you don't like Tim Tams? But you don't, you know, you don't, because when you practice your intuitive eating and you tune in, you get to say no, thank you. And like you say, but how can that not? It's chocolate. It's a chocolate biscuit. It's Australian. It's the forbidden. Everyone loves Tim Tams. And then to go, well, actually, I don't, because I'm intuitive.
Yeah, that's right. And, you know, I've discovered other foods that I do really love that, you know, maybe I wasn't that interested in before. So, yeah, that the first step is taking notice of all of those things. You know, does it actually taste really good? Is this, and it might taste good one day, it might not taste good another day. It might not be the right day for a Tim Tam. Yeah, so practice that checking in, and yeah, just taking notice of all those very subtle signals, because sometimes they are very, very subtle. And if those signals have been offline for a while, which they can be, if you've got a strong history of dieting, you might find that you don't actually feel very hungry at all. So that's not unusual. And it might start out, you know, the signals might just be a sensation in your throat, or a headache, or feeling a little bit weak, or you can't concentrate so well. Or another one, which people don't actually really think about too much, is thinking about food. That's one of the first signals that a lot of us get, is starting to think about food. So if you can't stop thinking about food, then just check in. You know, is there any emptiness there? Is there like a hollow sensation or a slight discomfort? Do I feel tired or weak or lethargic? You know, has it been a few hours since my last meal? Then that could be, one of your signals.
That's a great bit of information. Thank you. That is a great bit of information. Thank you. That is, wow, I'd never thought of that one, because I do understand that. And I feel like that potentially is a lot that happens is people are completely undernourished. They just haven't eaten enough because of this diet culture and all of the things that we've done, and that lack of hunger or that lack of interest in food.
So I'll share an example with you. I was thinking about this morning, actually, because this morning is a slightly different morning for me, or this whole morning. Yesterday I had quite a long walk with my dog. I was just in the zone, loving it. So I had a big walk yesterday. This morning I started the day out with I have a piece of toast and a small tub of yogurt and a cup of tea. And that was all I felt like this morning. And I felt satisfied, and quite normally that's kind of normal for me. That would get me going for the first few hours, and then I'm fine. But at about 9:30, so about 2 hours later, I was starting to get shaky, and I was thinking about food, and I felt a bit weak, and then I started to feel some hunger pains. I'm like, so today's a bit different. So, maybe that big walk yesterday has just boosted up my metabolism a little bit. My body's asking for a bit more. My meal last night might have been a little bit light. Maybe I should have nourished a little bit more, but regardless, I'm getting this strong signal now. My body is telling me I need more. So I go back. I had some mushrooms on toast with some avocado. I made myself a cup of tea. Had a nectarine. So, I just, tapped in and honoured what my body was telling me. And if I had been dieting, I would have tried to persist and push through experiencing all that hunger and all those symptoms. And it's really can be quite uncomfortable, push through until lunchtime. So, that's the power of intuitive eating, is being able to respond, to nourish the body, reassure the body, hey, food isn't scarce. You don't need to make any of those adjustments biochemically. I've got I'm listening. I've got this. Here you go. You can relax. Nothing's wrong. We're not, in famine. So the body can just chill.
Like your example, it knocked and you answered.
That's right.
That was a perfect example, like you gave with the dieting, knocking and no one's answering. Intuitive eating, I love that, because that really makes sense to me. Knock, is that a knock? Am I thinking about food? Am I actually physically feeling like those little chicks and going, checkpoints that you just let us know about, and then go, okay, I'm going to answer. I don't need to ignore the door and say no, because it's not this o'clock.
Only opening the door at 12:30.
Yes.
No, we don't need to do that. Because also what happens is, if I was to ignore those signals, what do you think would happen at the next opportunity to eat?
Scoff your face, stupid.
Yeah, exactly. My body's going to go, just in case food is scarce, I'm going to it will up-regulate the desire for high-fat, high-sugar, high-calorie, like high-value foods. So let's go for the burger for lunch, and I want a side of chips, and I want a can of Coke, and I'm ravenous, and I'm going to eat it all really quickly, because I'm a little bit afraid that, maybe food isn't around when I need it to be, and I don't trust you.
And that's that chemistry, because sometimes wild horses can't stop you doing that. That's that regret, because it's impulsive, because you are chemistry, and that is how it works. And the overriding the brain, you can do that for so long, but that's the being at war with yourself. And you can only hold steady for so long before it's almost like the soldiers break free and you like it's
absolutely.
It makes so much sense hearing it in this way, because we know this. It's our work is just to be, like you say, so gently and softly with ourselves, and just that listening. I'm here, because that knock might be soft, but it's listening. Yeah,
that's right. And the more we listen, the louder it gets, and the easier it is to understand what it's asking for.
Sarah, I could talk to you for hours. I love our conversations. I love your knowledge and the way you explain things. You are absolutely a gift. Thank you. I feel incredibly blessed that you made time in your busy life, raising a family, running all the things to chat. So I really appreciate. Thank you, Sarah.
Oh, you are so welcome. I'm really grateful for a chance to share all of this with the world. And I really hope that it lands for some people. And we can work towards a future without diets, if not for ourselves and for our children and future generations.
Beautiful work. And all of your details, your Instagram account, I will put in for people to follow you. I do love you bring attention to some wonderful marketing and media, and I do very much enjoy when you share that content. It's wonderful. Thank you again, Sarah. You are an absolute blessing. Thank you.
Thank you, Emma.
Empower your midlife. Hello, beautiful. Are you navigating this time of life but craving more calm, confidence and connection with your body? I've created a 3-day course designed just for women like you and I. With simple mindset shifts, soothing meditations and gentle yoga, you'll feel more grounded and less stressed and deeply empowered. It's time to embrace this chapter of life with a little more self-love and ease. There's a link in the show notes. Join me.